Hello out there, weirdos. This is Lindsey B. Goddard with the Weird Wide Web podcast. And I know I told you that season 1 was over, but here I am with a bonus episode because March is Women's History Month. And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to promote the poetry anthology that just came out through weirdwideweb.org, Sleeve of Hearts, and have some of the women authors from that book on the show to talk about their contribution to Sleeve of Hearts, but also just the other, cool stuff they have going on in their lives. And I also want to make sure to mention the dates of the free promotion we're going to have on Sleeve of Hearts on the Kindle. If you read on Amazon Kindle and you want to check out Sleeve of Hearts, it's going to be free from March 4th to 8th. So that means on March 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, you can go download that for free. And with me today is one of the poets from the book, and I've actually known her for a long time. Author Leigh Savage is here with me today. And how are you today, Leigh?
I'm doing great. At least we got some sunshine today, and I am thankful for that.
I know. I was just sitting out there with my dog, and I felt bad making him come in because I had to do this podcast because he was kind of looking at me like, really? This is the first nice day we've had in so long. But
I am so ready for the spring and summer.
Yeah, I promised him. I said, we'll come back out. I promise, buddy. But yeah, so me and Leigh are basically in the same area, which is why we're talking about the same weather. She's right here in Missouri with me.
Yes, I am. In fact, it's a funny thing. Me and Lindsey met. She edited one of my, I believe, third books for me way back in the day when I was just a fresh, independent writer didn't even have my image together yet.
I'll tell you what, I really owe you a thank you for that because you were one of the 2 clients that it was exactly what editing should be. I was editing grammar, punctuation, maybe a little bit of structure and giving some notes. But I got scared away from that editing that I was trying to do. Gosh, that was probably back in like 2009, I want to say.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I remember the book. It was I had you redo. You did Shadows of My Past, and then I had you redo Angel of Death, which I had paid someone else to do, and they didn't do such a good job.
Oh, well, that's nice to hear.
Fix the Angel of Death that the other person didn't well.
Yeah, I've always believed in my editing skills, but I took on a couple manuscripts that they made me cry because I may have the editing skills, but I don't know about my patience level. I think I discovered some things about my level of patience, and that's where I'll leave that.
I feel you in a lot of areas of my life.
But, that's kind of how I think you and I are alike in the way that we're always out there trying to make some sort of creative endeavor a reality over the years,
Oh, we have. And since then, I have expanded into modeling. I've done some indie film acting as well. So
I didn't know about the acting. I saw some of the modeling photo shoots, but I did not know about the acting. That's really cool.
I've been in a few little indie films, mostly horror-based ones. And then, on the side, I like to paint and draw still.
See, I get that. It becomes draining when you pour too much into one thing and then you've got to kind of hop to the other thing. Or maybe that's just us. I don't know.
It is. It recharges one area if I move to a different area.
I'm thinking back, like how long we've known each other. It's just now coming into perspective and clicking in my brain. And I've really watched your growth over the years. Like it's almost like you went into a cocoon and came out a butterfly. Not that I'm saying you used to be a caterpillar, but they're cute. Like they're cute too. So there's no shame in that. But
I 100% agree with that. I did. And a lot of that is reflected in the poem that I wrote as well. Which we'll get into a little bit. But yes, I did recede and kind of backed away from the world for about, I think it was like 3 or 4 years. I just went off social media completely.
And sometimes that's good for healing.
And I couldn't keep up the facade anymore. Faking I was in a good marriage. I couldn't fake that things were all right. And it was too hard to keep it up So the inspiration, I was still putting out books here and there, but I couldn't keep up the facade that you got to keep on social media. And it was so draining, but I wasn't ready to come forward and admit those things about my life yet.
And it comes through in some beautiful emotional poetry. So let's talk about your poetry contribution to Sleeve of Hearts. What made you want to send me a poem?
Well, first, I just saw your post online. I had already had the poem written enough. I had last year, I originally wanted to write like a second chance romance. And when I sat down to write, this was after the passing of my husband and realizing I wasn't in a good marriage and I just started dating a new guy. There was all these fears. Instead of a romance coming out, my story about healing came out, and my story about finally admitting to the world that behind the scenes, I was mistreated. I was constantly put down. There were spells he was very, very supportive, but then if I didn't follow what he wanted, then he would withdraw that support. It was a very controlling relationship, and I kind of lost my identity of who I was in order to stay with him. And the poem came to me because way back in our marriage, after we had a couple kids, one night in bed, I he just looked at me. He said, "You're not enough for me. I need more." And
Yeah, and and there's even a part about that in the poem, and you really feel it. Like, I feel your pain come across in that moment, which is exactly what I wanted for this book. So I thank you for opening up.
it was hard to do. And the book that I ended up writing that this also went into was called Treasured. And that is about my emotional healing. I try not to go too much into the abuse, but more I give examples of ways that he did it because it's not the typical abuse that we think about when we see movies, where it's overtly physical or overtly putting you down all the time. It was spread out, and then there would be spells of really good.
It's not always so clear cut. Manipulation is a huge tool
It
for a lot
is.
of these people.
And they progressively know how to nudge you slowly, very
Mhm.
slowly, so that you keep giving up more and more of your time and more of who you are in the process. And so I wrote that book, and then I was on Facebook and I saw your post, and you said you wanted some emotional poems. I'm like, well, here's a doozy that I came out with. And I put that in there, and I gave a couple little bit more lighter poems that were more on my after this, my healing journey. And of course, you picked out the one where I just ripped my heart out. And I was like, I knew that would be the one you would want. Not so much the ones that were fluffy, but I was like, this poem needs a wider audience because it, I was never going to publish it. And I read it to some people just like for my healing. And they said, I understand this. I've went through this. You need to share this because it will help other people that have been in this situation where they didn't want to leave because they had children. They didn't want to break up the home. It might not be physically the person told them they were not enough, but in the actions of the relationship, they showed that. And they were like, people will relate to this. You need to share it. You need to share your truth. And I wasn't going to because I was like, oh, but he's passed away. I shouldn't tarnish that. And then I finally realized, no, I need to do what's good for me. There's no more protecting the image of what we used to have. I need to heal and I need to step into the era that's about me now.
Yes, because you are enough. And that's for everyone listening. That's the name of Leigh's poem in the book, Enough. And like I said, it's going to be free from March 4th to March 8th on Kindle. So, I mean, you could check out this poem we're talking about right now for no cost to you. Like she said, she wasn't even going to submit it anywhere, but somehow for this book, I've been hearing that from a lot of the authors. And of course, that's the one out of the lot that I zeroed in on and selected because, oh, we editors are good at finding the juicy pieces.
Yes. The poems that have the story, the poems that reflect those emotions that are the hardest for us to share and come to terms with. And it really was just a healing journey for me, putting the book out, Treasured, writing the poem Enough. And then that led to me writing more poetry, which I released a book at the beginning of this year, that's just full of love poems,
Oh, wow.
based off now that I'm dating, and it's talking about, like, the poems are talking about realizing the difference in the love and the connection. And
You have like, is there details? Where can I go find this book?
this book is on Amazon. It's available in print and Kindle, and it is a KU read. It is called Soul Kisses Poetry.
Oh, I did see that when I was looking at your Amazon because I saw Treasured, which you were just talking about because it has
Mhm.
your face on it. I said, "Oh, there's Leigh." And I saw that and I did think about picking that up because like she just said, if you're on Kindle Unlimited, you can just read that for free then, right?
Yes, you can read it for free. Almost, I have over 30 titles now on Kindle, and I think I only have maybe 3 of them are not on KU. And that's just so I can have a couple of them on other platforms to lead people to KU. So most of my titles you can read for free if you're on KU.
So I gotta ask with Soul Kisses, is it just sweet lovey-dovey poems? Or I know sometimes with you things get a little sultry. So is there anything a little bit sexy in there or is it just sweet stuff?
It's mostly sweet stuff. It borderlines on a little hint of seductive stuff, but I kept it
Okay.
very tame for this.
Okay.
It does dive into a little bit of the darker side of where I was at and learning the difference of
Okay.
what a healthy relationship is as well. So,
I just know I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a tendency towards dark romance and stuff, don't you?
I do. One of my most popular series is the Seven Deadly Sins erotic series, which is, and then it has a prequel and an exit. So it ends up being 9 books total in that
Wow.
series, which are very kind of borderline horror erotica to an extent. That is kind of my market. I've been finding it hard to write in that space now
Why?
because I'm so much happier. I'm in a happier place, so it's kind
Right.
of harder to connect with that. So I'm trying to recalibrate and figure out what is it that Leigh wants to write now. Is she reconnecting back to that lovey-dovey romantic that I first started out when I wrote romance, or am I gonna like mix it up and be
More
able
of
to still
a
dabble with both? I'm
how
just
about more of
giving
a
some time to
heroine, like
recharge.
a heroine who doesn't need a love interest and sets out on her own adventures, maybe.
Maybe. I'm just waiting for that inspiration to strike. I am working on a project with another writer. It's been almost a year in the making. At some point, maybe we'll get that out. Basically, I'm writing the female character and he's writing the male character. And we keep
Ooh.
bouncing it back and forth to each other, writing off what the other one has written. And that one is more on a horror erotic side still.
See, I like working with other people because it keeps you working. But what I was going to ask, because since I'm on here with a series writer, because some authors they really go with a series and they will have anywhere from like 4 to 10 books in a series, and then I'm over here every day chronically complaining about trying to get a novel done. Okay. And I know with a series, there's a little more freedom because you know that the story is going to continue. So you're not as restricted by like a specific story arc. But I mean, aside from that, do you have any advice for someone who's chronically complaining about trying to put out one novel while you're over there writing on series work? Like,
Yes. So what I found that helps. Now, granted, this worked much better when my main job was like I wasn't working so many hours. Like now it's really hard to do it.
right.
But when I was mostly focusing on writing, one of these methods I used was, I don't know, I guess your audience may not know. I have an MBA. I'm also got a certificate in Scrum Master certification, project management certifications. I'm a operations manager for my day job.
Okay.
So, one of the techniques that I learned in this process of Scrum management is basically breaking down your project into smaller chunks and doing what's called a sprint. And then, so when I broke up my series into smaller chunks, and then you can then break down your book itself into smaller chunks. And when you're just meeting those smaller goals each day, it seems less overtaxing, less stressful, and it's much
Girl,
easier to meet it when you look at the whole project and you're like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get this done?
I want to tell any listeners out there who might be budding writers, because a lot of people who listen to my show are newer writers, maybe looking for some insight. And I 100% agree, because I just now started making progress on my novel, and I'll tell you why. I set up a folder for the whole thing, and I've just got the chapters in individual things, because I say if I can hit 2 to 3,000 words on each chapter, then I've got this book. And that has been, I don't know why it took me so long for that to dawn on me, but just opening up these larger documents I had and scrolling through and trying to find my headspace in the midst of all this text was too much. It was overwhelming.
It gets overwhelming. And when you're doing series, it's even more so because you're like, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get to this one here? And then it's, your own writing styles play into effect on that. Are you a planner or are you a pacer? I'm very much a pacer. So that was very hard for me to do because usually I don't have a plan. I usually didn't know, like Angel of Death, I didn't know it was going to be a series. When I
Right.
wrote the St. Louisville Vampire, I wrote it. I thought it was going to be a single book. And then at the end, I was like, oh, I guess there's another book. And then I wrote that one. I was like, I guess there's another one. So it just happened. Now, over the years, I've learned, like when I did Seven Deadly Sins, I knew that was going to be a series, but I'm still very much I don't like to set myself in stone on any idea for the book. So what I would do was only write like 1 to 2 sentences about this is what this book is going to be about. Just the most vaguest little,
Right.
less than a paragraph plot line. And so then I set up all of the book's themes on that less than a paragraph of this what, because I did a pre-release and everything for that series before I even had it written.
Right. So you have to have a plan at that
I
point.
had to have a little bit of a plan and I had to have like timelines. Now, the other thing I learned with this was take into consideration if you're doing live events, you're not going to have as much time to write. I did have to move one of my books deadlines to out because I was doing Gateway Con in St. Louis and speaking, and I forgot to, I'm not going to be able to write that week.
Oh, right.
So I had to adjust it, and then Amazon's like, if you have to adjust again, you can lose the privilege of pre-releasing. I'm like, ooh, okay. Consider my hand slapped. I learned from it.
I get that. And I have really learned to utilize my phone's calendar and scheduler.
Mhm.
I had a good friend approach me just the other day with a great writing idea, and she was really trying to get me excited and writing on it with her this year. But I told her, like, the way I've had to set things up this year is I have a game plan already, because the way it looks right now, I'm editing a horror comedy anthology. I'm doing Sleeve of Hearts 2. I'm working on my novel and true crime book. I'm judging writing contests through weirdwideweb.org. We're going to have those writing contests with the paid prizes again coming up. I edit and lay out and post the blogs for my blog writers, and I do this podcast. And I'm getting anxiety just listing all those things, thinking I probably forgot something. So,
And that's the way life is. And we all have to learn our own coping skills with that. For me, I've really dove into, in the healing process, meditation, kind of spiritual practices for myself to just kind of go inward and kind of block out all the noise.
We're going to have to hang out because I've been meaning to figure out the meditation. I feel like there's something to this meditation thing. I mean, it's, a pretty ancient practice to begin with, but
I use frequencies a lot. I listen to frequencies. I think the frequencies help the brain.
what do you mean? You
Uh,
just sit there and listen to a certain frequency of sound?
Yes. So you can find on YouTube, like they'll have like different frequencies and it'll tell you what the hertz is, like whether it's 7 hertz, 11 hertz. They have the different ones, and each one's supposed to target like a different part of the brain. And there are some that are set up that are aligned to help balance your chakras. And then you can listen and it goes through each one that's for each of your chakras. Or you can go, oh, I feel ungrounded today. I want to listen to something that's more of a grounding sound. And then you just look that up and listen to that. And then you visualize whatever you visualize for grounding yourself, your feet getting roots into the ground, or just feeling yourself being in the present moment. People have different ways of doing that. I typically do not do guided meditations anymore. I prefer to kind of guide myself into it because I feel like whatever information that I'm supposed to know, I can hear it more if I don't have someone else's voice telling me what to do.
Right. Oh, I can feel that. And you know what you and I ought to do, and this will be a free advertisement for them if they're still in business, but you and I should get together and go down to Enchanted Attic in St. Charles.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I usually go to Pathways, but yeah, I would like to go there too. That's
Have
closer
you ever
here.
been in there?
I have not. I have been going to Pathways for probably like 20 plus years.
Now there I haven't been, so we'll have to show each other the stores that each other's talking about.
Yeah, because I do very much, I work with crystals and things like that to help balance energy.
I get them all and I give them to my daughter because she tells me what they're all for, and then it goes in one ear and out the other. It's just one of those things I can't absorb. Which crystal is what? You'll never find out from me. I don't know. But
I don't,
they're pretty. I really think they're pretty.
it's not so much about what each one, like I'll read it, but that's not how I pick them out. I go in and I just feel drawn to it. Like there's like a little zap or whatever, and I'm like, I need that one. And then I don't have to know the reason why I needed it or what it's doing for me. I just know I needed it.
Wow. So we're going to get together. You're going to teach me about chakras and meditation, I think. And you know what? We need to do a local author signing sometime
Yeah,
together. That would be really cool.
that would be, because I mean, it's crazy that this is the first time I've ever heard your voice.
I know.
And we've worked together. We've been Facebook friends forever, and we're so close to each other. And this is the first time we've ever heard each other's voice.
But sometimes it seems like 2009 wasn't so long ago. So,
It,
you
it
know,
doesn't, it's
time
like a
flies
blink
whether
of
you're
an eye.
having fun or not.
True. And the person I was then is a completely different person than what I am now.
And I love who you become.
And
And I love your bold photo shoots and how you've kind of taken ownership of yourself and your body, and just you're a strong, fierce woman. And I admire that.
thank you. I appreciate it. It took a lot after being beaten down. Like in 2019, I was doing some modeling and I did a little bit of acting and everything. And I was starting to feel good about myself. And I think that triggered more of the behaviors that, led to um, him putting me down more. And then I went backwards and I started putting on weight again and I started getting depressed again. So my confidence just went away at that point again. And then, like, it was like this realization. It wasn't that long after he passed, and I was just like, I'm not sad. Wait, what is it? I'm like, and I felt bad at first, and I felt guilty about it because everyone would be like, oh, I'm so sorry he passed. Well, and I was sorry he died of cancer I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But
Right.
at the same time, I wasn't sad. I wasn't the widow. I was like, I feel confident again. It was the whole not being put down anymore. Like suddenly, when you didn't have all that negativity around you every single day, you were allowed to be happy again.
Right.
And it was like, wow. And then when I started dating this guy, it was just, I got compliments all the time. And
Wow.
he would say, oh, how smart I am. And hearing those positive things every day, I was like, I'm not used to that. Wow, what do I do with this? Like, wow, that's a real confident boost. And I started working on myself spiritually. And then I got into the gym to help heal my body. I went and found personal trainers at Alloy Fitness, and they really helped me get to back into shape in a way that worked with where I was and continually like set the bar a little higher and kept pushing me. And I did that for about a year. And once I started feeling confident again, I was like, all right, start doing photo shoots again. Let's bring that back out. And I've had people reach out to me and say, your photos from before were pretty, but the photos now, there's something different about them. You just glow. And I'm like, it's
Hmm.
because I'm happy now.
Yeah, you can
And
see
that
it in your eyes.
shows. It just emanates. And I'm like, that's what's attracting people to it. So it's a difference in how I feel about myself now. That confidence is showing through.
And I keep going back to us being locals that live near each other, but um, you should do a photo shoot with me in a cemetery because some of these local old cemeteries are so beautiful and there's no one around. There's not, these people are not recently deceased. There's no family members like watching, and we could, we could probably get a cool photo shoot going. I'm
Oh,
just,
yeah, that would be amazing. I've done cemetery shoots before. It's been a while, but there was some pretty fun ones, but that was a group photo shoot, so I had to be pretty tame on those ones.
yeah, this will just be two wild ladies. So I don't know. I don't know what all might happen, but
I'm sure
well,
it'd be fun.
you heard it first here, folks. In the future might hold a Leigh Savage, Lindsey Goddard cemetery photo shoot. Who knows? We've been on for almost half an hour, and I ended up rounding up 5 guests for this episode. So I do hope everyone hangs in to the very end. You're going to be first up, so I know they'll at least be listening to hear. But I think I'm going to wrap up with you just because I'm going to
All
have
right.
the other 4 on after you. Is there anything else? Like, did you want to tell anyone where to find you or anything else before
Yeah,
we go?
just you can find me on Facebook at Leigh Savage, OnlyFans, Leigh Savage, or you can find all my content if you go to leisavagemedia.com. My
All
official
right.
website. It will have all the links to everywhere you can see me. But you can also get through most of that. Just search Leigh Savage.
And you can also find her poem Enough in the Sleeve of Hearts anthology, which will be on free promo here at the beginning of March. And thank you for joining us, Leigh. Alrighty. Obviously, I am host Lindsey B. Goddard here with the Weird Wide Web podcast on our big Women's Appreciation Month episode. I'm having a bunch of the female authors from Sleeve of Hearts onto the episode today to kind of talk about their poem or poetry in general, why literature is important. I don't know, whatever we decide to talk about. And today with me, I have author Erin Banks. She contributed 2 poems to the Sleeve of Hearts anthology, and I know she has lots more writing that she does besides that. So, how are you today, Erin?
I'm fantastic. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Or basically, I invited myself, so that's cool too.
Well, not really, because when I ask around and kind of fish around and see if people are interested in coming on, a lot of people clam up and they're like, well, and some people will even message me and say, well, I'm kind of interested in it, but I'm not sure or whatever. So you've got to come and say, yep, I want to come on the show, and then I'll get you scheduled. So that takes a bit of guts. You got to give yourself credit.
Absolutely. I don't mind if I'm coming across as silly or anything like that. I'm just trying to be a fun guest, talk a little bit about my stuff or whatever else there is. I
Oh,
once
girl.
had one interview where I had to decide really quickly if I was more into vampires or werewolves, pizza or hot dogs. So that was
Oh,
the wildest thing I'd ever done, actually.
that is so funny that you're talking about that because I was just talking about that with somebody this morning. How I will watch or listen to podcasts and the hosts come out with these really bizarre questions that give me secondhand embarrassment because I'm sitting there watching the guests or listening even. You can hear the tension in the guests, even when it's audio, like trying to come up with a unique answer for this off the wall question. So I try not to ask people like, the most off the wall thing I can think of because I have been on the other end of that. And I've been on podcasts where I just totally freeze up or whatever because
So I shouldn't ask you what kind of pineapple pizza you would be, like what would go on that specifically, because
what
I
goes
planned that.
what goes with pineapple I think should only be ham. I don't
Right. I do
know.
agree on that.
Anyway, you sent me such a great piece for Sleeve of Hearts. It's funny calling it a piece because the title of it actually is There's No Peace in Peace, right? I don't have it right in
Yes.
front of me. Sorry. I should have pulled it up. So There's No Peace in Peace. And it's a really emotional poem. I mean, is there anything particularly that inspired it that you'd want to go into, or what even inspired you to send it to me, even?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about that. It's mostly related to my book that I'm writing, but what you have to know is that my novel about rage is partly autobiographical in the sense that I'm delving into some of my own trauma and relationship and friendship issues that resulted from that. And something that I observed in myself and that the character also struggles with is that there's an instability in relationships and romantic relationships. And it's always this roller coaster ride of ups and downs where at first, you have that dopamine rush of being in love or whatever else. And then it falls flat because stability isn't peace to somebody whose nervous system was basically broken, completely messed up. Peace is boredom, is dangerous. And of course, when you're like this, you find similar people, that are roller coaster people. So you can give each other a little chaos and drama and unpredictability. So that's what inspired it, basically.
Wow. That is such a deep answer. Like, I'm trying to think of what my answer would be for my poem, and I think it'd be pretty good. But yours was fantastic. Um, so I don't want to make you pace around and wait if you're wanting to read the piece because I know how nerve wracking that can be. Are you wanting to read the poem? Because you don't have to.
Sure, I could try.
Because some of the authors coming on might read theirs, some might not. We're just going to see what happens this episode. It's going to be pretty chill. So,
Absolutely. I'm ready.
okay,
Here
cool.
we
Well,
go.
all right, let's do it.
There's no peace in peace, just monotony. Although courtesy of carnal gluttony, we edge on bliss every handful of years, until all of first have been volunteered, until staleness replaces novelty, and we each find new lowlights of cruelty. You ignore, hoping the thirst will return. I take stabs at love, for I never learn that verity is a blunt sword to use, and lacking finesse, I can only lose. Peace is a mute, protracted execution. The games we play, the only solution, until politeness revives our passion, until a kiss tastes like a transgression. Gone are the days that I was your dopamine. Pretend, then, that it's anyone but me. Love me like a man that's dying of thirst. Fuck me as you did on January 1st. Lie to me without remorse or regret, with gleaming eyes as on the day we met.
That's beautiful, and you read that perfectly. See? I should put
Thank
in
you.
I should put in my, I have a sound effect that's round of applause, and if I could pull that up out of my folder, I'll put it in for you.
Great.
That was great, and I also, what was so fun about the Sleeve of Hearts anthology is it just kept developing as it went along. And some of the authors just, I could really tell they wanted more than one poem in it because I had settled on, okay, there's so many authors who want to do this. We'll just do one feature poem each. And so
Mm.
we decided to do the short poetry and the haiku section at the back. And that just turned out so great. Like I even had a book reviewer say that was their favorite part was the shorter section at the back. And
Oh, really?
yeah, and you sent one for that, which was my original point. So thanks for that because everybody kind of chipping in and sending their extra little ones, I think gave it a special touch at the end of the book, really.
It did, absolutely. And I read a couple of the shorter ones as well. I mean, obviously, they're more easily digestible. But yeah, there were a couple of really special ones. And obviously, Sleeve of Hearts, it's very emotional. You really get to see into people's souls, basically. And I always love that because it makes you understand the authors better, the whole author community, the horror community or poetry community, and there's just this shared understanding between each other. I love that.
Yes, and there was so many authors who write in different genres. I mean, I think in the end, we're all a little bit connected by horror because
Mhm.
it's really the grandfather of a lot of other things. Even I kind of snooped on you for a couple minutes before we came on, and I saw you do some true crime. Is that right?
That's true. My first book is actually true crime. I wrote it on Ted Bundy and some of the lesser known case aspects, the unconfirmed survivors, which is a very controversial topic, obviously, but I just had to go there. I like things controversial. My debut novel was as well, so I'm happy with it.
And I think that's kind of where everyone came from because that's true crime, but it's horrific. So I kind of, like I said, like the grandfather of us is like our draw to horror. But there was sci-fi authors and there was poets and there was true crime authors and there was first time authors who had never submitted anywhere who had sent me poems for this. So just a great mix of people in the Sleeve of Hearts anthology.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something I really appreciate about you is that I saw there were first time authors in there and it's so difficult to get that first chance, you know. So I always appreciate when I see that because I've been there and it was very difficult for me to, get a foot in the door of publishing.
And my strategy with that is that I encouraged everybody to send me a few poems. And that way,
Mm.
even with the novice authors, if not every poem was their strongest one, I was usually able to find something that it's funny. It's so funny what comes out when you tell people that the theme is to speak from the heart. Because there's a lot of people in the world that you don't feel like there's a platform for that a lot of the time. It's a busy world. People don't have time to listen to your problems. So it was like bam, bam, bam. My inbox filled up because people want to put their heart on their sleeve, but we're busy.
Absolutely. I mean, especially in today's world with social media, and you know this, everybody is just posting happy success posts, and a lot of that certainly is true, or happy family pictures, or something along those lines. But there's always a different reality. I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
dual world. We have a dual nature, so we're less willing to put our true selves out there because we know how easily our feelings can get hurt. And text and tone and text is, of course, always a problem. So, yeah, I think what we're doing, actually, all of this authors, writers, artists, putting ourselves out there, we're really making ourselves vulnerable. But at the same time, it's so wonderful to see when it resonates with people, with readers or anyone. And that makes it worth it. Whenever I get like a bad review or a snarky comment or something like that, I'm like, maybe it wasn't for you, but you'll find something else. But there's enough people that resonate it with.
And you as an author, you've got to be pretty comfortable with putting yourself out there if you're branching into the topics of trauma and things like that.
Yeah.
Did you say that's something you're currently working on or that's already out?
About Rage is out. It's going to be a trilogy. I've been working on About Revenge, the second book, and then unfortunately, I had the perfect storyline pop into my head, the perfect character for book three. So I've been parallel writing those two. Then, of course, my friend Carrietta Dorsch approached me and was like, "Hey, you want to write together?" And it just sounded like such a fun story, great characters, and
And she's
we've done
fun.
that.
It seems like anything she touches might be fun.
Totally. She's amazing. We spend so much time on the phone. We're always giggling like schoolgirls. And it's great. She's very creative, amazing writer.
And that's what's great about the internet because you're all the way over there in Germany, right? And
Yeah,
I think she's American like me, right?
she's American.
So
Yeah,
here,
she's
here
up
we
in
all
North
are.
Carolina.
That's so neat. And then speaking of your roots in Germany, I had put out a submission call for the upcoming Easter episodes. That's what we call it here. It's just Easter here in
Mhm.
Missouri, USA. Um, but I was looking for everything from like the American traditional Easter bunny. Well, I have some horror stories, and you can imagine the Easter bunny and the horror story is going to get pretty interesting. But I was also
Yeah,
looking for the roots, like the Germanic or pagan or just. I can't even pronounce the original goddess, like Easter or something.
Yost, Yoster. Yeah.
See, there you go. I should have asked. Um, and you sent me the perfect story. It's just perfect.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy. I was a little nervous sending it because I know that it might offend some people because, of course, Easter is more associated with Christian themes and so forth these days. But I thought, oh, why not try it? It can just be a fun fantasy piece if it offends people's spiritual
And you know what's funny about
sensitivities.
that? On the flip side, I was looking to avoid involving anything with the Christian religion entirely, just to avoid offending anybody. So, kind of however you look at
Right.
it, we're all out here trying to speak our mind, but we're also not trying to get our books burned or get banned from the internet. So, we're doing our best. And I think that's
Exactly.
perfect. I mean, there's a lot of the old lore and stuff in there that I would have to Google half the gods you mentioned and stuff. So that's great. That's going to be really fun for me to read, and I look forward to it. So thank you for sending that. And those Easter episodes
Thank you for
obviously
thinking.
will be out around Easter sometime.
Yes. Great. I'll be looking for it.
Let's see. And back to oh gosh, I'm going to pull up your bibliography again. So, have you written more than one book on Ted Bundy?
No, I translated my first book into German because there wasn't any Ted Bundy book out in German, which really surprised me. I would have thought that at least Kevin Sullivan, who wrote 6 books on Bundy, or I think now even 7. And this is how I started writing myself. Is he asked me because I was a Bundy researcher for years, and he asked me if I wanted to contribute a chapter to his 6th book. I was amazed. I thought, he really thinks I'm good enough? I was a blogger girl. And I did that. And then I thought, you know what? I have enough material for a book. It's a really fun topic. No one dares touch. So I went there. And after that, it obviously research takes a lot of time. It's just completely strung out. And I thought, why not write something fun just for me about a female serial killer? Because I hadn't really seen a whole lot of that in fiction, or at least not in the way that I did it, because I'm interested in the psychology of things. I'm interested, why do people do something like this? I really wanted to not just address superficial issues or just throw around some psych terms, pop psychology terms. And it was great. I just wrote from the heart. Everything I knew and everything I felt, and combined it in really twisty, weird ways. So yeah.
I can relate to that because I feel that need to understand the evil. And I think some of the scariest moments in life for me, honestly, as far as, the things I intake viewing and reading and whatnot, not, real life, because that's a lot scarier. But, when you watch a true crime documentary and you get all the way to the end and you still can't really identify the
Mm,
motives behind a person's evil, like, how could someone do the things they did, and you watch the whole thing and you still can't pinpoint it. It's like this uncomfortable lurking feeling that's almost the scariest of anything I've read, being an avid horror reader and things like that. So yeah,
yeah,
that need to get
yeah,
to the bottom of it,
absolutely.
because we want to get to the bottom of it so we can make some peace with it, of these horrible things people do, and you can't always get that. It's
Not from true crime, because it is more about the case facts. And even if they have psychologists on there, they always get the shortest segments for some reason.
well,
I think people are also scared to to know what exactly drives people like that, because it's very human. We all have a dark side, a shadow self. And if you see, hey, these people aren't exactly all that different, they just have trauma, and they have the extreme end of the spectrum of human emotions or lack thereof. That's scary if you think this could have happened to me, or I could escalate. This could happen to me. You never know.
absolutely. And I think really what I was referencing is I got so deep into the show Evil Lives Here because it talks to the family members and the friends who actually went through
Mm,
it firsthand. So it's not really so much the investigators and the forensics. And that's where you're expecting some resolution, because you're expecting you'll get to know. And just sometimes you can't put a finger on evil. And I think, like I said, it's just like
mm.
a uncomfortable feeling that I feel like true crime is definitely more disturbing than fiction. I mean, of course. Do you have any other true crime stuff besides that you've got out there?
No, not yet. I have a great idea for another Bundy book, actually, but I've been so busy with fiction, it's gonna. I probably am not gonna get around to Bundy or anything true crime until 2027.
Ooh, so
So,
let's talk a little bit about fiction then. Like, is there anything, I mean, as authors, we always have stuff going on that we can't talk about, which is just irritating as all heck. But is there anything you can talk about?
yes, I can talk about Carrietta in my project. So we only just published the first novelette, and we're already working on the second one. We're a couple of thousand words in after only 2 days. So I think we are having a lot of fun with this, and we're just exploring different angles of the characters, their personalities, and mostly it's really just flattery erotica. So jokingly, we always call it murder porn
Right.
because it's less erotica, but it's pretty violent. Not for the faint of heart, but it's just entertainment, and I mean, people seem to love it. I don't have TikTok, but there've been a couple of reviews. People are excited, so we're extra motivated to do a good job writing the second novelette. There's about maybe 4 or 5 planned, and yeah, we'll see where it takes us.
And I think with how you described it as purely entertaining, I think a novelette is the perfect length for that. And for any listeners who aren't, big into books necessarily, it's kind of goes short story being, I mean, they're shorter than a short story, but we'll start with short story being the shortest. Then you get to novelette, and that's a little bit shorter than a novella, which is shorter than a novel, and it goes up the chain. So it's a really long short story, basically. Is that fair to call it?
That's fair. I mean, it's I think 44 pages, so it's a very easy read. Not a light read, but an easy
Right.
read.
And maybe that's the right length since there's probably a lot of crazy stuff going on, I'm going to guess.
Yes, quite a bit
You
of
don't you don't want to
it.
overload people. So that sounds really
Yeah.
fun. And do you have a plan of how many you guys are going to do of those?
Probably 4 or 5. I mean, we're just gonna let the characters tell the story. But we think just because of how we talk, all the things we still want to explore, um, that it's gonna be around 4 or 5 novelettes. And yeah, as for other projects, there's still a couple of things coming out that I can't really talk about yet. But it's poetry, it's horror, it's paranormal, so I'm very excited.
Is it all three at once?
It's yeah, I mean there's always stuff coming out, because I consistently do something
Well, I
for
mean, is
um
it horror, paranormal, and poetry? Like,
oh, no. That would be fun. I mean, I've read the poems before, but no, it's separate.
you never know. That's a fun theme, like paranormal horror poetry, So I was just thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. And for anybody listening, you can always find information about Sleeve of Hearts at weirdwideweb.org/SOH, as in Sleeve of Hearts. And that'll have a link to all sorts of places that you can purchase it. You can download on ebook, and you can buy a paperback and support these 52 authors, including Erin Banks, who was nice enough to come on today. Is there anything else fun and exciting you just want to talk about for a little bit before we go?
I think I've pretty much mentioned it all in terms of my excitement to be in your anthology. I don't know if you've already disclosed more publicly
About
anything
number
else
two.
in terms of that.
Yeah, there's going to be a Sleeve of
Yeah.
Hearts too, and I look forward to seeing what you send me for that. And I think for that, we should do more than one poem per author. What do you think?
I think that's a fantastic idea. I definitely have enough material. I'm very eager to see what everybody else contributes if I get in. If I don't get in, I'm still going to buy it because I love supporting you. You've always been very good and very kind to me. And I also just really love what you do. And I know most of the people in the anthology. I want to support them. So
Well,
yeah, I'm
I'll
super
tell you
excited for
what,
everything
that
you
is
do.
another thing that I really loved about Sleeve of Hearts and that I love about doing a poetry anthology. As far as the page count, you can fit more authors because it
Yeah.
mentally and emotionally exhausts me doing the writing contest. And I know I have one coming up this spring and I'm still doing it. I'm not backing out, but it's exhausting sending over 100 rejection letters and that. And really, with the poetry anthology, how it went was if someone wasn't really understanding the theme or wasn't really giving me the content I was looking for, I was kind of back and forth working with some people and ended up working some things out of some people that maybe they wouldn't have even written. Like that's how magical this anthology ended up being. Now, most editors and most presses, they're not going to have the time to sit there and back and forth with authors. So if you're a new author listening to this, don't get the impression that's the way it goes. But this was such a project from the heart, and there really wasn't a whole lot of rejection, and that's what I enjoyed about it because I don't like being the mean editor that I have to be with the
No, and I don't think that you're being mean. I mean, we've all gotten rejection letters, and I mean, especially you when you explain just in brief why it didn't work or what could be done better. I realize you don't always have time for that, or other publishers don't either. But that really helps, and I think feedback like that has definitely helped me grow as a writer and try harder. Get smarter, read more.
And that's good to hear. And it's tough, especially with the microfiction contest. I was really impressed with how so many people were able to develop a plot in 600 words or less. Like I thought it would be an easy decision process just based on the fact that people would be scrambling to come up with a complete story in such a tight word count. And I got so many great submissions for that really gave me a headache on that one, making decisions for the microfiction. So yeah. So anyway, that
Right.
being said, I look forward to Sleeve of Hearts too because I'm getting really into the poetry. I'm loving working all these emotions out of people. I'm just over here like making people cry and feel. It's great. So
Yes.
and I've loved chatting about it with you today. I thank you so much for coming on, and I think your poetry reading turned out great. And do you have a website or anything where
Thanks so
people can
much.
follow you or find you if they want to look you up?
No, I've never been really great at self promotion. I'm on Facebook. You can follow me or friend me. That's totally cool. And
Yeah, and I'm sure I've tagged you
that's
and
just
stuff
me.
about Sleeve of Hearts, so you can get to her through there too. Yep.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with you, but I thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to Sleeve of Hearts #2.
Same. And thank you so much. I had a great time
Okay.
with you.
Bye-bye. Hello out there, weirdos. This is Lindsey B. Goddard again with the Weird Wide Web podcast. Today we have my good friend Suzie Lockhart here with us. And how are you today, Suzie?
I am good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. As far as life's crazy roller coaster, I'm just trying to enjoy the ups and downs instead of get sick by them, you know?
Oh, yeah. We always have a lot going on, the two of us.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to carry a puke bag though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wanted one last night after I ate my tacos that I made myself, so I couldn't blame it on anybody else.
You know, you're a sucker for the spice and you did it to yourself. You know this. You know it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And well, today I wanted to talk with you about Sleeve of Hearts because we've got 52 poets in there. And I figure we might as well run a promotion and try to get some more copies floating around the world. I appreciate you being a part of it. Me and you go kind of way back. And you sent me that was the assignment, was to send a personal piece that was from the heart. And that's what you did. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
And you also had a haiku in the back. I don't remember. Did you have anything else, like a short poem with the short poetry?
No, I just had time and the haiku.
Awesome. Well, some of the authors were wanting to read their poems on the podcast, and I know you said you want to, but I always give everybody one last chance to back out. So are you sure you want to read that for us?
Yeah, both. I'll read both.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Anybody who reads their poems, I'm going to put in my little round of applause sound effect at the end.
Okay.
You won't get to hear it today while you're on with me, but when you listen to the episode, you'll have some people clapping for you. So it should make you feel good.
That would be great. It'll be like midnight radio. There was this place that did these live broadcast recordings like they used to do in the olden days, you know? And I don't know, it's like hard to explain, but everybody, played a different character. They would just read it, because it was broadcast on the radio.
Oh.
But what made it fun was we went to see A Christmas Story. It was the first one we ever saw. And the boy was played by a girl on the radio. The grown-up version of him was played by an African American man. Everybody was just so off of what these characters, were in the movie. It was hilarious. And they do sound effects too. That's what I was trying to get to. The long
like
way.
Funny sound effects added in.
Oh yeah. They had all kinds of sound effects.
That sounds fun and pretty diverse for back then. So do you want to read your poem then? I guess that was a yes, wasn't it? She committed. We heard it. She's reading it.
I committed. Yes, I did. Okay. How about if I read my haiku first, since it's very short?
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Okay, and then I'll do the other one. So the haiku is called Hearts. Light, love, and laughter in a heart, bloodied, bruised, and battered. That's my haiku.
So dark.
Yeah, I have been on this poetry kick lately.
Me too.
No.
I know, like, tell me something I don't know, right?
Oh man, it'll be late at night and something will come to me and I'll type it out into my notes. And I never thought any of them were going to see the light of day. But then I went back and I read them and they weren't too bad. And I thought,
Yes.
well, maybe I can include these.
And I was so happy when your laptop was, well, I wasn't happy that your laptop was broken, but I was happy when you realized that you could start writing poetry on your phone, because
Yes.
you should never be not writing. You've really got a gift.
Definitely. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. The last part didn't hit my brain, before my mouth opened up and started speaking.
No, you're fine.
Okay, so I'm not sure exactly when I wrote this, but this poem is called Time. Oh, how quickly time has flown. How could I have truly known? Years would pass by in a flash. Days I thought would forever last are now mere memories of that wistful past. I still can recall each baby smell, each coo and smile that I could tell was just for me, would forever be. But I was wrong, because tomorrow came as if it were only some mere game. These precious gifts, only mine. Days flew by until with time they grew and replaced me with another, and the empty nest left me to suffer. I yearned to always have them near. The thought they'd leave, never a fear. The bond was forged and always shared. How silly of me. I thought it would forever be.
That's beautiful, and it hits home. I have a couple very similar to that in my first poetry collection, Head Trip. One of them is called Empty Rooms, because I was looking at empty rooms. But you did great, because you and I, everyone, Casey Hill, we all just kind of hopped on and started this podcast less than a year ago. I mean, that was like May when it started.
Wow.
So we've overcome a lot of nerves, and we're all we're stars now, I think.
Okay, cool.
we got this. We're
We
podcast
do.
stars.
We do. Well, we always knew we were badasses ever since Mistresses of the Macabre. So
Now, speaking of, like, all the badass women of horror and all those anthologies that you and I used to be in together, it always ended up being women of horror anthologies. So that kind of all down the line led to you putting together, is it Damsels of Distress or Damsels in Distress?
Dastardly Damsels.
Oh yeah, Dastardly Damsels. See, I need more coffee too. Gosh dang it. Well, see, I'm not in it, so I'm not under obligation to remember these things.
Renee's in it though in my intro.
I know. I did read the intro. I appreciate the name drop. So Dastardly Damsels, and that got picked up by Crystal Lake Publishing. And offhand, do you remember how many authors are in that?
A little bit over 30, like 32, I think.
And I really did faux pas on that title, because the whole theme of the whole collection is that these damsels are not in distress. Okay,
Exactly.
They've got the situation under control. These damsels are going to kick your ass. Am I a little bit right about that?
Oh, most definitely. And the reviews that have been coming in for it, I mean, I'm just really...
I know, like, you were in Rue Morgue. I'm interrupting you. I'm sorry, but that's exciting that you had an article in Rue Morgue, and it was so beautiful looking.
Yes. That was, as if that wasn't exciting enough. Then we won Best Anthology in the Peony Readers Poll.
That was so exciting, and you went out there and you were getting those votes, and you took home number one. So congrats on that.
Oh yeah, I'm always a pain in the butt if I have an anthology out that year.
You'll be knocking on doors. Do you have a minute to talk about Dastardly Damsels? Because I think there's something you should be reading in your life. No, you do a great job at getting out there and promoting it. And you didn't even have personally a story in that, right? You just
No,
curated
it's
it?
my introduction, which I thought was sort of unique.
It was. It was very personal. That's for
Yeah.
sure. I
Okay.
do hope everyone, checks out Dastardly Damsels, checks out Suzie Lockhart. Her and I might have, some cool stuff on the horizon. I don't want
Oh,
to say too.
yeah.
I'm always online posting teasers because I just can't help myself on Facebook. I'm sitting around the house and I'm like, I just want to show people this cover or say something about this project coming up. But
Uh,
I try on the podcast to bite my tongue a little bit more. But I mean, you've had other stuff. I mean, you had a short story come out in the Devil's Playground anthology,
yes, I
which
did. I
I
had
don't
Valdez. It was a
remember.
reprint.
Okay, if I would ever just shut up and let you talk, you would just explain because I was getting ready to say I don't remember which one that was.
It's
So,
okay.
will you tell us a little bit about that one?
Oh, Valdez is probably one of my favorite stories that I've written. Um, because I got to play with a vampire. um, he's a vampire that works the night shift, of course, naturally, but he's nothing like Nick Knight was. If anybody remembers Nick Knight,
I don't. I
hello.
don't. Who? I don't. I now we're gonna sidetrack because I don't know who Nick Knight is. Let's
Do you
sidetrack
know
for
who?
1 second.
Do you know who Rick Springfield is?
Sure.
Oh, he played Nick Knight.
Okay. I'll
Okay.
have to Google. I'll be Googling. Okay.
Hmm.
Anyway, continue.
Okay. So he was tired of cold blood all the time. Just it wasn't the same as when he used to actually feed off of people.
Right, of course.
But he wasn't without a soul like Angel was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So what he decided to do was feed off the bad guys. So the first scene is really catchy because it's from one of the bad guys' perspective. Um,
So he's like, I hate to say it because everyone always makes the comparison, but he's kind of like a Dexter vampire.
you know what? I have to watch Dexter. I have not
Okay, so
watched Dexter.
anytime a bad guy or an anti-hero character is sort of a vigilante against
Yeah,
other criminals, they tend to get compared to Dexter because that was his whole deal. He was a serial killer, but he targeted bad guys, pedophiles and just awful
oh,
humans to where while you're watching it, now he's fulfilling an urge that he shouldn't have, but he's kind of picking off the scum of the earth. So you're kind of like, all right, all right.
I like
So
that.
you
I'm
didn't
gonna.
even know that when you wrote this vampire. So this was purely just
Oh,
from
yeah,
your own head.
yeah. This was years ago that I wrote this story, and um, I didn't have anything fresh brewing at that moment, so I sent the reprint. And so the vampire, as he keeps drinking, consuming blood from these bad guys, eventually it's almost like a virus that gets in his system because he starts to turn bad.
Oh yeah, okay.
And in the end, he has to kill his partner who he loved dearly. And even as he did it, he felt bad. And
But he's just compelled to now because he had too much bad blood.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And uh, that's basically where the story in the book ends. But I have this whole scenario in my head where he changes back. He doesn't want to do that anymore. He's got to leave the area, start fresh again. But his partner Robert had kids, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if one of those kids was a girl and came after him like 20 years later or 15 years later, she was a couple years old, and they fell in love.
Ooh,
I thought
okay.
that could be a nice, juicy, twisty tidbit story. So now that I have talked about it live, maybe I will get to writing the rest of it, because I think that would be
I
interesting.
agree.
Yeah.
And that is a good way to kind of build a readership is hidden Easter eggs where you take a story element from one story and put it in another, or even just the interlacing characters and interlooping stories. A lot of people really like that about Stephen King. And well, I'm not going to sit here and list a list of authors that do that because there's a ton, but so yeah, I think you should go forward with that, sure. But
Yeah.
that's what I always say when people tell me they're writing ideas. I mean, every once in a while, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I don't think you should go forward at all.
Well, yeah.
But that's kind of rare. So
Yeah, I think interlacing things is always fun. And yeah, I recently had a piece in Women of Horror. Um, Elaine Pascali, she reads them and she does such an amazing job, and she's one of the authors in Dastardly Damsels too.
yeah, and she has you mean on the YouTube channel that she does?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, those are
Yeah.
fun. Those
Oh
are fun.
yeah,
If you
definitely.
if you're on YouTube and you're looking for some horror content to subscribe to, is her name pronounced Elaine Pascali? Is that it? Pascal? Well,
Yeah.
anyway, try to type that how I said it and look for her on YouTube because she's always doing readings and they're just little snippets that are pretty quick to take in, pretty
Yeah.
entertaining.
It's just how it sounds. Um and I should mention who actually does the Women of Horror, uh, the senior editor, the everything editor. Um, that's Nina D'Arcangelo, and she's been running this for quite a while now. And
Yes,
it's a
we love
really,
Nina.
yeah, oh, isn't she just the
Yeah,
sweetest?
whenever I was doing my small businesses from home and trying to use that little bit of income to pay some bills and get by, she actually bought some stuff from me, and she's published me a couple times over the years when they were doing Siren's Call, and I always like to see her name pop up. I don't see her a whole lot in my feed, but it's just a name over the years, and I'm like, oh, there's Nina.
Yeah.
So the cat's kind of out of the bag on this episode because I already talked about it with one of the other authors I had on. But there is definitely going to be a Sleeve of Hearts too. And like, I have a lot on my plate this year, and I'm kind of freaking out. But I mean, I feel like if I need help with this one, I can probably find it because so many people were passionate about it. So I feel pretty comfortable doing it again.
Sure. I would help you in an instant if you needed it. Poetry is a little bit different than having to edit stories, because you really don't want to touch people's poetry.
I know. And I'll tell you what, I am not doing a center alignment on the next one. And you either get that or you don't. And I'll tell you, tell you what, there's a lot of notes I made. I'm not going to get into it, but it is like there is a certain finesse to laying out the poetry as well. And I'm learning as I go on that too. So
Mm.
yeah, I am open to helpers. I'll put that out there.
There you go.
Let's see, what else can we talk about? You read your poem, and we talked about Dastardly Damsels, which is not called Damsels in Distress, guys.
That's where the idea originally came from, though.
Yeah, that's what we're all so used to saying. That's the
Yeah,
catchphrase. But
exactly. Um, but I know what else we should talk about.
what?
Come what may.
Yes, come what may, but it's just we're still trying to decide on a release date. And anytime you talk about something, people want to know, well, when is it coming? But I am excited for people to know that
Yep.
Suzie and I are gonna have a collection out together.
We're determined to have that before the year changes. Right.
We are
Oh.
determined it will be a 2025 release. We are determined.
Yeah,
Come what may.
exactly. And
Now, I wonder if you've even listened to the brutal metal song from which I pulled this title, because
yes,
I
I did. I listened.
oh, I love you, girl. You
Yeah,
know I love you.
I love you too. You know it. Yeah, I definitely listened to it.
And they've got other lighter stuff. I'm going to get you, I'm going to pull you on board onto my musical train so you can come with me on a journey. Uh, we have so much fun, but I got Amanda Worthington that I'm supposed to be having on pretty soon. So I'm
Okay.
probably going to wrap up with you, but because you and I were chatting so long before I even pressed record that we've been in here for an hour, girl.
Wow. It doesn't seem
Well,
like it.
not quite an hour, because in Susie's usual style, she showed up with like one button undone on the top of her shirt, burst into the door, spilling coffee out of her cup instead. I'm here, like 10 minutes late, right? I'm just kidding. But you keep me centered and you keep me laughing.
Oh,
Sure.
that's you keep me centered too, you know. We've helped each other through a lot of
All
rough
kinds of
times,
bullshit.
a lot of bullshit. That's why the title is so perfect and the cover is so perfect, because that's what it feels like, you know,
I think so too.
two virtual sisters walking through the shit together.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
really look forward to it. Well, for all of our guests, I'm going to close out with Suzie Lockhart, because we are having 5 guests on this episode. At first it was 4, but you know how everything with me tends to
Ooh.
just keep growing and snowballing out of control, because that's my style. So I'm going to wrap up with Suzie, and I will be back on with our next guest to talk more about Sleeve of Hearts. Thank you for coming on, Suzie. You want to say goodbye to our listeners?
No, we really do appreciate if you listen to this podcast. We appreciate it immensely.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and I will see you with the next interview here shortly. Okay, welcome back, weirdos. Obviously, I am Lindsey B. Goddard. I have introduced myself probably at least a couple times this episode by now, because we are going to have 5 guests on this episode to celebrate Women's History Month, and March 8th is International Women's Day, and I have so much talent in general in the Sleeve of Hearts anthology. I mean, a big shout out to the guys too, but this is just a theme that struck me, and I thought I'd go with it for the bonus episode. So I invited some of the female poets on to kind of talk about their poem in this book and their other work and whatever the heck we want to talk about. So right now I have with me Amanda Worthington. And how are you today, Amanda?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I'm excited for this episode because, well, I mean, I was excited for this anthology, and I haven't really been on the podcast since it came out to even discuss it. So, time to discuss it. Let's see. Your poem that you sent in. Am I wrong that you said it's maybe like your deepest or most emotional poem that you've written? Am I way off with that, or?
Not at all. So, it's called A Stirring in the Ashes, and it's there's a lot of imagery that I kind of use in the poem that relates to. I've had an issue with drinking in the past, and so facing addiction and kind of recovering from that. It was really one of my first efforts to bring this into the larger world, I guess. Something that I always just kept private, and
Right.
I don't think a lot of people knew I dealt with it because I didn't look like I was dealing with it. But this is kind of like a revelatory piece in that way. And it was difficult to write, but also one of the things I'm proudest of, I think.
And I can totally appreciate that because in my first collection, Head Trip, I am sometimes still embarrassed when people say they're picking that up just because it was a lot of that from me. I was going through alcohol recovery and you're so raw. It's like an oyster, a shell opened up and you're just this quivering oyster in there, like so I think maybe that's why your poem resonated with me maybe so much because I was really blown away when I read it. Um, I I give my authors an in or a out because some of them wanted to come on and read their poem, and some might not be comfortable doing that. So, what train are you on today? You think you might want to read it, or
Yeah, I'm happy to read it for people.
that's cool. I mean, if you want, like, if you're prepared, we could just set right into that so people can understand what we're even discussing.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. So I'm happy to go right into it. So again, this poem is it's a little long. I apologize, but it's called "A Stirring in the Ashes." It is quiet where I am, soft and heavy in this bed of dead things. I am tempted to burrow further down, to let the whisper of their life echo lull me back to sleep. The light hurts my eyes, but I keep clawing my way toward it, swimming out of the familiar dark and into pain, rising into the throbbing dawn with their remnants adhering to me like grains of sand, small and multitudinous, invasive remnants of some forgotten violence. As I climb, I imagine the shower that will wash them away, see the dead circle in a lovely little eddy as the drain claims them. I can't wait to be free of the mistake, whatever it is, the thing that clings like sweat and sings my regret to me. So why am I uneasy? There is something waking in the pit of my stomach. It is unspeakable ecstasy, just moments away but delayed. The heat intrudes on my peace gradually. It is like inching toward orgasm, but one that promises only agony. And not for the first time, I wonder, what am I carrying up out of the dark? My flesh feels hot, like there are embers buried there. With an effort, I pull myself out of the abyss that is like an open wound on an otherwise unblemished landscape. Looking down at my overworked arms, I see that segments of my skin glow, a splash of color against the endless beige of desert, flickering, uncertain, like a fire trying to catch. My nerves ignite, and I grimace. I turn back to regard the pit, consider my journey up, jump back in, perhaps. Because this is not the world I was promised. And the pain comes again from within, white-hot contractions, liquid flame filling all the hollow spaces in me and making new ones. When at long last it passes, I drop to my knees, reach for the lip of the chasm, and my hand comes away with sand. And then it is empty. I close my eyes and open them again to determine if this is a dream distorting what I see, twisting me around the cogs of some unfathomable machine that makes me see only death and apathy and desert, and no way back down into my blissful bed of cool ash, and the certainty of nothing happening and the blessed repose that accompanies being buried. I begin to cry and hate myself for it. I can't afford to lose moisture. Looking down, I see that I am caressing a feather, absent-mindedly. I search for the bird that left it, but there is no one and nothing for as long as the eye can see in every direction. Just the merciless sun beating down. The thirst is the worst thing. God, I'd kill for a drink, I think. I don't recall drifting off, but I must sleep because then I'm waking, trembling, doused, which seems an impossible feat for my dried-out body. I lick my skin with my eager tongue. Parched, it thrills at the taste of the salt. I tear the flesh if I had the strength, drink from the dark rivers of sustenance flowing there, so dire is my need. The heat grows, carves new canyons in me. I retch, but finally find my breath, and spread out before me is a wing, where my arm used to be. I scream as I feel my atoms ignite, and then the fire fills me with a pleasure so great the sea couldn't put it out. A waterfall cascades from the cloudless sky, the surge vanishing at the horizon. Was it here before pouring its excess infinitely just out of reach? Do mirages happen so far up? A tremor disrupts my reverie, and as it recedes, I lay shaken, spent. Still, there is some pent-up energy, and it pulls me up. Flight frightens me, but the falls compel me, and I feel close to where I saw them appear, and I never imagined that I'd never get there. The sun is a magnet, and there is no reprieve, only burning, no refreshment, only the torment of defeat. And then I am falling, and I know suddenly that this is how I find my way back into the silence of the pit that is like a held breath awaiting a resetting of the cycle. And I know that the falls were never meant for me. My heart is a furnace promising to destroy all evidence of my journey. I am so much debris, and whatever rises again, it will not be me. And if it knew what the ashes know and cannot speak, I do not believe it would rise at all. I think it would stay buried down deep and wait for the urge to burn to pass. And that's it.
Yes, and you're going to get a huge round of applause sound effect inserted there because, well, everyone's getting one, but I think I'm going to make yours even bigger because
Nice.
that's a big one. You did great. Good job on that. And it's, yeah, passionate to say the least. I can't remember. Did you send in any short poetry? I'm not going to like make you read it. I'm just trying to remember for the sake of the book.
I did. Yeah, I have a couple other pieces I submitted. So yeah.
I'm going to flip to the back and take a peek while we chat. But anyway, it's just that it all happened so quickly. And the thing with the short poetry is that I just got the vibe from a lot of the authors that they really would like to submit more than one, well, a lot of people were submitting more than one, but I was only choosing one featured piece per author. And, the more I got that vibe, like everyone kind of really wanted to be a bigger part of it. I'm like, well, let's put some short poetry at the back and some haiku at the back. And so that ended up being a fun extra feature that I think really, we're definitely going to do that again in number 2.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. And so you're a poet. I mean, you're always writing poetry. So what is this like? I know you've kind of always been a writer, but was there been a sudden reawakening in you? Because all of a sudden I'm just feeling like you're really on it and out there selling yourself as a poet and getting stuff lined up. So like, what's all the exciting news going on with you? What can we discuss?
Yeah, so I have always been a writer. Like, I think my first published thing was if anybody that's listening remembers Young Authors, this publication we used to get published in when we were little kids.
Yeah.
I was in there when I was 6 years old, and I was super proud
That's
of that.
cool.
And I still have the submission. It was actually typed on a typewriter, showing my age a little bit, but my mom helped.
Oh, I had one too.
And the page is kind of yellowing a little bit because it's almost 40 years old. So that's fun.
That's really cool. Like I would have loved to have shared that TOC with you because we tend to share tables of contents.
Yes, definitely.
And I'm making a play on that because Amanda helped me out with the poetry book I just released, and she noticed a typo right on not page 1, but right in the table of contents. So I got to mess around with the tables of contents. But but yeah, that's why I feel like I'm just seeing you everywhere. I think it's because we keep being in the same books.
Yeah, and I will say I've gotten a little bit more serious about putting myself out there than I was before. I think for me, poetry is actually fairly easy for me to write. At least the first draft, I'll work with it, refine it. But when I'm in a high emotional state, I tend to write poetry because it's a way of getting it out of myself. And so I've done the poetry longer than I've done the fiction writing. It comes a little easier for me, to be honest. So I've just recently kind of been putting it out there a little bit more because I really do want to put myself out there more. It's just kind of being busy is a thing. And also some of the stuff is very, very vulnerable. And
Right.
it can be a little hard to, put ourselves out there like that. But then I had actually submitted a poem also on my addiction to space and time, and it got accepted for publication. And I kind of had this, oh my God moment where like, oh, well, that's the poem you want to publish. Okay. Of the 3 I sent in, you're going to publish the one where I talk about, carrying a emergency corkscrew in my purse.
Yeah.
So that's real fun. Now people know. So I think,
Editors are great at finding that juicy piece, aren't
yeah,
they?
they are. And
And I think that was the first one of yours that I ever read, I think. So that's
well,
special to me then.
yeah, and it's I guess it's a little easier to put yourself out there when you think of all the people that read, Space and Time, and now they
Yeah.
know, so they know my name, and so I might as well, dive deeper. So I think that gave me some courage, actually.
And speaking of time, I feel like time factors into a lot of, I'm seeing a lot more people reading poetry than I thought I would see when I started getting back into it. And I feel like because we all live such busy lives, that people do enjoy just pulling up a couple poems at a time and reading them. More so than I thought. I didn't think there'd be this much interest because I was toying around with the idea of putting out another poetry collection, but I knew I'd have to write so much new material. But there's a good response to it, and I think that's a lot of it. Like we can kind of get a glimpse into your soul real quick.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like, to me, it's a kind of music. It's like, I turn on, certain songs when I want to feel a certain kind of way. I think I pick up certain poems and read them too to feel a certain kind of way. And I know with my own poetry, I kind of mess around with internal rhymes and mess with the sound of things. And poetry is really a place where I can play with words a little bit more
Absolutely.
elsewhere, and I really enjoy doing that. So I think that's part of why I write it so much.
I think the rhythm of poetry is what originally drew me in with all the Shel Silverstein and Dr. Seuss. But then, even going, when I was starting to be 10, 11, 12 years old, the Edgar Allan Poe, he had such a grasp on rhyme and rhythm. It's like, um, those were always kind of easier for me to commit to memory too, if you make something rhyme. And it's almost like how you remember a song. And so, yes, poetry is musical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's easier too to write things. I think in poetry, I write about themes that, pretty much everybody can connect to in some way. I think you can do that more quickly with a poem than you can with a story. Like you can do it with a story, but yeah, poetry is its own little thing. And it's actually helped my fiction writing game quite a bit. So.
Really? Like, how so?
So I can describe the way I describe things, the world building in the pieces that I write. I get a lot of compliments on it, and I never really thought about it, but I think because I practice through poetry, and a lot of poetry is saying things in other words and playing with the sound of language, and I think that when people read that in a story, it just comes it feels,
Right.
sounds a different way, and it connects them a
Mhm.
little bit more deeply. So
It's almost more, not whimsical, but more magical. I don't know. You'd think I'd be able to come up with a good synonym since I'm a writer, but yeah, I agree. So how much would you say your ratio of fiction to poetry is that you write?
oh god, it's probably 90% poetry right now, to be honest. I want to change that a little bit. I have been trying to write more stories just because I feel like when you have a muscle that's doing great, maybe it needs to be worked a little less. And when you have a muscle that you haven't been using as much, you need to work it out a little bit more. And I really, I don't think my fiction writing is bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that it could be improved. And it is more of a challenge for me to really form a narrative that works on every level and like makes sense. And I write things very out of order sometimes. So I kind of struggle with piecing things together in a way that makes sense. And it's a thing I'm trying to work on a little bit. So
Where you excel already, though, is knowing that, like knowing where you need improvement and looking to make it. Because, gosh, I say this way too much lately, but it's true. I've been doing this over 20 years. If you take into account the fact that my first accepted piece in a magazine was when I was 15. Okay, so that was 26 years ago. So I'm on and off sending things to editors, and they tell me yes or no. So I've been doing it for over 20 years, and I've encountered a lot of fellow writers. And so often I've seen that the people that aren't open to criticism and just think that they already have the gift from God, they're not the better writers.
Right? It's 100% true. Yeah, if you have to, like, I can always tell someone that either, doesn't want any kind of help at all, or, is like, okay, I have a question. How do I go about publishing this piece I just wrote? And doesn't want any editing, doesn't want anybody to look at it, just wants to put their passionate words out there. And it's like, this is a process. It's sometimes a very difficult one. But if you're not open to critique, you're not going to improve. And if you are going to improve in ways you don't always anticipate sometimes. And I think that's what this is about. I think it's about effort as much as talent,
Yes, and you must respect the process. So, like, I know you're involved. Do you head a chapter of the HWA?
I do. So I actually, I'm in Kansas City, and I didn't really have any writing community when I first started this kind of horror writing journey. And so I looked around for a chapter, and there wasn't one near me. And so I tried to start one in Kansas City and didn't get enough people. So I expanded the reach a little bit and created a regional chapter. We're called Horror in the Heartland. And as the name implies, it's kind of the heartland part of the country. So we have members from 8 different states. It's just, there are a lot of shared boundaries. It's a weird part of the country, as you know. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
We have to reach out a little further from where we live to find fellow creative minds. We
yeah.
have to branch out a little farther.
And they're there. That's the fun part, is that, there are these people and these, so many horror writers. I mean, I feel very fortunate to be in a city, but there are so many people I've met that, live in these small little towns, and they write horror and they would love the community, but they didn't know it was an option for them. And so we've really made a little way into reaching out into some of these places and bringing people together that I don't think would have even met each other otherwise. So it's a kind of a rewarding outreach sort of work that we do too.
That's really great. And it's really like the whole reason you and I met is because we were at the St. Louis AuthorCon, and you were kind of promoting the Horror in the Heartland and got me pulled into all that. So yeah, you're out there doing the work, doing the good work for the horror writing community. Oh, and I throw out terms all the time on this podcast. I'll just say HWA, and then we'll move on. And I'm sorry, everybody who's not in our specific bookish world. That's the Horror Writers Association. They do the Bram Stoker Awards every year and a bunch of other stuff. They're the glue of the horror industry for us book people, I guess I would say.
Good point.
But yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of representation here in the Midwest, which is kind of where Amanda stepped in and is doing her part little by little to get some representation around here. It's long overdue. We appreciate you. I'm trying to think what else I'm going to ask you. I could ask you something just really weird, but I'm not going to do that.
Oh, you can do that if you want.
But it's just like, I could talk about all the books we've been in together, but I don't have all day. The whole point of this episode, I guess, is we're going to run a free promotion on Sleeve of Hearts on Amazon, where you can download it on Kindle for free. So I do want to mention, you can find more information on that at weirdwideweb.org/SOH, as in Sleeve of Hearts. I'm not sure at the time of this recording right now exactly when that free promo is going to go on, but there will be a free promo because, like we've been saying, there's 52 poets in these pages, and I want to get it into the hands of more readers, and I'd like to get more reviews of it. I really would, because, the feedback I've gotten from the few people I've gotten, they're saying, "Oh, this should win awards, and this blew me away. I didn't think I was going to sit down and read the whole thing, but I did." But it's been kind of sparse as far as people posting those to Amazon and Goodreads and stuff. So I would like to see that pick up. I really would.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's an amazing collection. So.
Especially that'll inspire us all to get number 2 going.
Right. Yeah. You can have her have, if I can just avoid calling it Heart of Sleeves, we're doing it.
I am not the only one. Thank you. I edited out on my interview with Erin Banks on this episode. I edited out myself saying the very same thing. Heart of Sleeves. I don't know. That just rolls off the tongue. So we're going to have to do a Heart of Sleeves too now.
And it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what that, I can't envision what that image would look like. No, I don't know. I just keep saying it.
I'm envisioning it. It's it's shaped like an anatomical heart, and it's made of like denim. For some reason, the sleeves are denim.
Yeah.
I don't know why, just to make it worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with denim, but it's just like, I don't know, something about the aesthetic of all the denim sleeves. It's very disturbing right now. Anyway, I knew things would go a little off with me and you, but I'm so glad I met you last year at that convention. And is there any other projects that spring to mind that you just want to throw out a promo for or anything or talk about?
I can't really talk too much about it right now, but I will say I have an exciting project that should be announced in April. So people are free to follow me. My name's Amanda Worthington. I'm sure you'll see that or hear that at some point again, but you feel free to follow me on social media for more about that. Like I said, I can't really talk too much about it, but just kind of like cliffhanger.
What platforms are you on?
To be honest, I'm terrible about being on platforms. I'm lucky to be on Facebook. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. That's basically what I'm on right now.
I need to help you. I need to help you get a Blue Sky because everyone's doing the Blue Sky thing.
I need to get a Blue Sky thing. I feel like there are so many social medias. I have trouble keeping up with them all. I definitely am no longer on. I still call it Twitter. I'm not on there anymore, but
because of Weird Wide Web, I have dug in my heels and I have stubbornly refused to leave any platform. A, I'm nosy.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I'm nosy and I want to keep track of people. B, I want to reach as many people as I can. I think that's it, just A and B. So, I mean, Weird Wide Web you can find on everything, and I'm on X still, but I get that. Like, it's a ghost town on X when I get on there because everyone that I was mutually interacting with is gone, and same with a lot of the others. So I think Facebook is a necessary evil where you can find a lot of us if you're interested in our projects and connect. That seems to be what a lot of my guests say is just find me on Facebook, because although there are things about Facebook that irritate the piss out of us, I think it's just the ease of communication on there and how we can all just work on our projects and collaborate so easily, really.
Yeah. And it's, I think it reached this like max, just like it grew and grew and grew. And it's just the thing that most people by default, I mean, I even think people conflate social media and Facebook, it's just, if you're not on Facebook, something's wrong with you, which I don't necessarily agree with that statement, but it is very easy for me to kind of seamlessly send messages to people and collaborate with people. And yeah, it's where I manage a lot of the chapter stuff, to be honest. And I don't know that ethically I'm like, I want to be doing this, but until something more
you've got to promote.
Yeah.
There has to be a platform for artists. And that's why I stubbornly dug my heels in and stayed in a lot of places, because I kind of feel like, why shouldn't I utilize this? And why shouldn't I reach as many people as possible when I'm out here trying to promote books and artists and everybody, musicians, everything on the blog? Why shouldn't I maximize the audience I'm reaching? Why should I suffer just because? Well, we're not going to get into the reason we're all leaving because we don't have all day to sit here and bitch about those monsters. But
yeah.
So anyway, find Amanda on Facebook and find me everywhere. And I want to thank Amanda so much for joining us. I think I'm going to wrap up our session because there's going to be 5 guests on this episode. So awesome.
That's awesome. I was glad to be here.
All right. And thank you so much for coming. And maybe I can have you on again, maybe season 2 or 3, or I don't know. We're going to be friends, BFFs forever, right?
Just send me a message on Facebook.
All right. All right, guys, this is Lindsey B. Goddard again, here with another guest for Women's History Month. I just thought it's a good opportunity to hop on here and celebrate some of the women authors in the pages of our Sleeve of Hearts anthology, but also just talk about everything going on in their lives and whatever the heck we want to talk about. So today I am with Nora B. Peevy, whom I love because we both have a B for our middle initial. And how are you today, Nora?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm okay. We kind of did this in the pre-chat, and I felt like I was rubbing it in your face because I asked how the weather is where you're at, and it's kind of gloomy. But here in Missouri, it's actually a really nice day here.
Do you actually have sun?
Yes. I was noticing earlier there's actually not a single cloud in the sky. It's just that beautiful blue. So,
No, we just have cold and rain. It's very gloomy. Perfect horror writer weather.
And do you have that a lot in Wisconsin?
We do during the winter months and in spring. It tends to be that way. Everybody's vitamin D deficient.
Oh man. See, I'm coming out that way soon, so it better brighten up for me when I'm on the way. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, well, if you're coming in spring, expect mud and lots of rain and dead worms.
Okay. Well, dead worms, here I come. So, I want to celebrate you today because, well, A, I'm exhausted. I don't want to talk about me. You've been accomplishing a lot lately. You got some good news today that you blogged about on your Substack, but are you able to talk about it on the podcast at all?
Sure. I've been working on a short story collection for a few years, and it has finally been accepted to Journalstone. It's called Cemetery Tacos and Other Delights, and it is coming out August 15th of this year. I am very excited. Don Noble is working on the cover. So I just gave him ideas yesterday of what I'm looking for, and I've never actually had the chance to have somebody design a cover exactly for me, and that is an honor, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes up with.
I've seen his cover work before, I believe, and I think you'll probably be happy.
Yes, and it's in edits right now, so I'll be getting edits back soon. I don't know if I'm going to dread that or if I'm going to enjoy it.
Well, you'll get through it, that's for sure. I'm wondering, I'm going to have to pick up the collection, I guess, because Cemetery Tacos definitely was the right title to pick. I'm already wondering what a cemetery taco is.
Well, actually, Cemetery Tacos derived from the when COVID first came out. My ex-boyfriend and I, we used to go and pick a cemetery, and then we would find a bench of just, a stranger that we didn't know. We would take our tacos there and sit down and visit with them.
I see.
It was like nice and peaceful because cemeteries are gorgeous and there aren't a lot of people. And during the beginning of COVID, you were restricted to a lot of places that you could go. So it was like Cemetery Tacos on Wednesday, and that's the title of the story. And
I love that. And I've seen other people have little cemetery picnics, and you really can't pick a better spot because there's not going to be anyone hitting your picnic spread with a beach ball or a dog running across it. So just you and nature.
Yes, it's gorgeous. And then we would walk through the cemetery and take pictures of all our favorite graves and learn historical facts about different things that happened, like if there was a typhoid breakout or if there was a fire that happened at an orphanage. And we would learn history that way that we didn't know about in Milwaukee. So that was also interesting.
That's exactly how I began to embrace where I live, because I was a restless child and I thought Missouri was the most boring place ever, you know. And as I got into my 20s, I started going to the cemeteries and I would Google, because yes, even back in my 20s, Google existed, believe it or not. And I would Google the names of the headstones and the monuments and learn about all the history. So it's like death bringing about an interest in life, really.
Yes, and all the funeral symbolism that is carved into the gravestones is very interesting.
And I loved your blog article on that. I sometimes feel like I don't give your blogs enough shout outs and enough love, because you spend a lot of time on those nonfiction articles. And I want everyone to know, I mean, people still will be like, what blog? Where's your blog? People. weirdwideweb.org. Go to the main menu, and right there it says WordPress blog. Click that, and it's such a mix of stuff. Nora has sent in over time such interesting nonfiction articles just about weird history or just anything weird. But we've also got music reviews, book reviews, anything weird, really. And some of the things you sent in, like the harbingers of death and all the different cultures and then what they associate with, like, the omens of death. And it's always a little bit gloomy, probably.
Yeah, flower symbolism for cemeteries and for funeral arrangements, and symbolism of
Well,
headstones.
it gets funny too, though. There's fun ones like the different towns, like Buttsville. Did you know
Yes.
Buttsville's a town? Because it
Yes.
is. And well, there might be one about sex toys on there, and I know for you kink freaks, that's going to get you to the blog. So it's not that there might be. There's a blog about some sex toys on there. So go check out the blog at weirdwideweb.org. Click on WordPress blog.
You might learn something about Nicolas Cage or dinosaurs that you didn't know about before in the bedroom. Just saying, go check it out.
I started thinking about that blog and about, I'm just going to say it. I started thinking about Nicolas Cage during dinner with my son, because we were talking about all the different ways that people apply their love of Nicolas Cage now. And yeah, so you got in my head. I started thinking of that and I was like, oh man, I can't talk about that one at dinner.
But he's so decorative. I mean, he's meant to be a decoration in your house, not a
beautiful.
utility.
Exactly. So yeah, you write all kinds of stuff, nonfiction, poetry, fiction. And your poem that you sent me for Sleeve of Hearts, did you say that you wrote that in 1998?
1997. And
Wow.
it's still relevant today, which is really sad as a woman, because I wrote it as a commentary about how we're supposed to be in society and the expected standards of what we're supposed to look like and what we're supposed to be like as a female. And sadly, it's 2025 and we're still there. We haven't made any progress. And
I
it's
wouldn't have guessed that poem was written that long ago. So yeah.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's called Pink Mansions, and I dedicated it to Maren Cadell. And if anybody doesn't know who Maren Cadell is, she no longer actually records, but she's from Canada, and she wrote like the Pope Mobile and the Sweater Song and a bunch of other really snarkastic songs that were really fun in the 90s, in like the mid to late 90s. And I really got into her music through another ex-boyfriend of mine. I get influenced by a lot of my exes with what I write, because it's just, my life at the time.
Right.
And I just write from where I am. So, Pink Mansions. Yes, I want to be Barbie. I want to have blonde, synthetic hair that's flammable, so when I light my cigarette, I can go out with a real bang. I want electric blue eyeshadow tattooed on my eyelids. I want lashes of steel and boobs of silicone. I want lips so red they blind men and teeth as white as toilet paper. Yes, I want to be Barbie. I want the assurance that for all eternity I will be wearing spiked heels and my feet will never blister. I want the waist of a newborn infant so I can pig out on pastry pies and cheesecake and never have to exercise. I want to live in a pink mansion with my own personal elevator to the second floor so I will never have to climb stairs again in heels. I want a self-cleaning bathroom and a lawn that never needs cutting. Yes, I want to be Barbie. I want a white Afghan hound named Prince, who never makes a mess in the yard, and a white cat named Fluffy with the self-cleaning litter box. I want to date Ken, the perfect man, with the perfect hair, the perfect car, and the perfect clothes, who always calls when he says he will, who never forgets Barbie's birthday, or her almost perfect anatomy.
Okay, that's not about you, so I'm not going to ask if you ever found Ken, because that Ken, in that poem, we don't really want that Ken, do we?
No.
No, we don't. And we don't want the pink mansion either, in case anybody listening didn't catch that. Yeah, I love that piece, and I was so happy to include it. And thank you for explaining the dedication, because I was kind of curious about that.
Yeah, she's great. If you can find any of her songs online, I think some of them might be on YouTube.
Okay.
I think definitely the sweater song is on there because I've gone and listened to it a couple times. The video is hysterical.
I'll type it into YouTube, because I'm on YouTube all day just playing background stuff while I do whatever. Like, even when I go in the car, it just comes with me on my phone. So I'll look that up. Let's see other exciting things we can. What else have you got going on that you can talk about in 2025?
Oh, geez. Well, right now I'm reading scripts again for the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
So I'm judging those to help the final judges figure out what you guys get to see at the film festival. I have Shocking Sojourns Volume 2 with Sydney Shiv coming out soon. Like I said, my debut collection is coming out on August 15th. On March 1st, the first e-zine of Thrill Ride that I'm in is coming out. I'm now an author syndicate with them. The series on March 1st is Secrets. Candisha Press has me in Pretend You Don't See Her, which is all female writers. I'm not exactly sure on the date when that is coming out. I'm in Carnage House number 6, which is coming out soon, and I also made The Best of Year 1. I recently became a narrator for Bainham Books Press for their podcast, The Midnight Manuscripts. I'm doing horror and light erotica. Having a little fun with that since it just started. I've recorded about 3. We already got censored by YouTube for the erotica, but then it got put back up because we fell into the artistic category.
I mean, I watched a lady wax herself down there on YouTube one time. Like,
Yeah,
so,
it's
come on now.
crazy. Yeah, I couldn't believe
And
it. It was like
I
a
just
thing of
admitted
weight.
that. Like, I watched the whole thing. It was pretty engrossing. But so let's break that down, because that was such a big list. I want to go back to Thrill Ride. Did you say you'll have like a repeated spot in their e-zine?
Yeah, I'm an author syndicate, and it is 4 issues per year, and they expect you to make at least 2 issues, if not more. So I'm hopeful I'm going to make all 4. I've already written for the next one.
Are they connected stories or just standalone?
Well, you can do standalone, but what I've done is connected stories between characters so that I can put it out as a collection, which is exciting. So we'll see how that goes.
And is that mature content like some of your other stuff, or not as much?
Well, it's action and thriller, shoot 'em up, big cars, driving fast. Think Fast and Furious.
Well, then let's talk
James
about
Bond.
this stuff that got you banned. What what was so bad on YouTube the other day? Let's go back to that.
Well, I think it was the area on which the vampire was rubbing her butt. and the
Oh.
mention of certain words and the fact that it was in a strip club.
And which
I
project, because you named so many projects you're doing this year, which one is this that's on YouTube?
This is through Bainham Books Press. It is called The Midnight Manuscripts, and it just started.
All right.
So
Like I
it's
said, I'm a YouTube addict, so I'll go follow that.
yeah, it's awesome. I also have other projects that I'm doing too. I'm still looking for a home for flesh-eating turtles since my contract fell through, so I still have that. And I'm working on a new short story collection called Sapphic Divinity, which is all stories all about women, no men. If there are men, bad things happen to them. And
Well,
I'm
I
writing,
mean, that's the definition of sapphic. So if it wasn't, well, I mean, not the very definition, but yeah, I mean, it's got to be women, women, women. Um,
yes,
and, if men intrude, bad things might happen. I mean, guys, we can't help that. They should just mind their own beeswax. Um,
yes,
and was your list still going just now? I mean,
yes.
all right,
I'm writing two
continue.
novels. I'm writing with other people. The first novel is with Thomas Stewart. It's called A Storm of Feathers, and it's a dark romance. And the other one that I'm writing is Forest of Blood with Hetty Johansson, which, as its name kind of says, it's going to be horror. So it's interesting writing with other people. And I think that's kind of where my list is like leaning off right now, but that's a lot.
There are so many benefits and drawbacks to collaboration. I mean, it obviously takes a lot of patience and compromise, but I also feel like it keeps you going because you're constantly bouncing things off of another human instead of just sitting alone, staring at a cursor blinking on the screen saying, "Where do I take this next?" All by your lonesome.
Yeah.
When did you, I mean, have you always kind of been a collaborating author, or is that just something you decided to do recently?
It's a recent thing. I just said, "Hey, I want to write a novel with you. Are you interested?" And I've never done it before. I had no idea how to do it, but I just jumped in there the way I always do.
Yeah. That's how to get things done. It's just, maybe stick the tip of your toes in and then your foot and test the water first before you jump all the way in, but you got to try new things.
I
And
agree.
not everything pans out. I know a lot of my listeners are newer authors or people maybe trying to break into the indie industry because they've kind of messaged and reached out and said they do like to listen to the show for some insight. And as you heard Nora say, sometimes we will get our hopes up and we will wait for a project and it'll just fall through. The press will fall through, plans, whatever collaborations fall through. So you never want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't even want to have one basket. You just
You can have a zillion baskets like I do.
yeah, that's why we're over here weaving new baskets when we already have baskets because you never know, what's going to hit and what's going to land and find its audience. So we're always busy, as you heard Nora say. Did I even let you get through your list of what you're doing this year?
Yeah, that's what's going on right now. I'm sure there will be more coming along. I always volunteer myself for everything, and I'm hoping to be reading for the Stokers. Maybe I don't know. Fingers crossed. I don't know. We'll
That's
see what
cool.
happens.
I
Yeah,
still need to rejoin the HWA. I am just such a broke ass. Like I'm a procrastinator and a bum, but I'm working on it because I was a member several years in a row, and I kind of miss being in the loop of info and the camaraderie there because it's a good organization.
I'm waiting until I get paid in a couple days, and then I'm going to rejoin. And I'm not going to get paid until March, so I'm going to have to pay the new dues instead of the old dues. I'm like, oh, it's just bad timing, but that's the way it is.
See, you sound like me, and let me recommend to anybody listening, go Google Nora B. Peevy, go Google Lindsey Goddard, and just grab a book because every time you do that, uh, gosh, it sure would help us do all these things we need to do, and keep up with all these writerly things we're constantly trying to keep up with. And
And
that's
we're
my,
everywhere. Like if you Google our names, we're everywhere.
that's what I'm saying. And do you have a main website, like a .com, or are you in between on that? Because a lot of people, they don't get a lot of traffic to their .com, so they're just doing social media now.
I'm just social media. I'm Nora B. Peevy on Substack, and I'm Onyx Brightwing on Facebook. And I'm Nora B. Peevy on Instagram, so you can find me there. On Threads also, Nora B. Peevy on Blue Sky. Basically, Nora B. Peevy everywhere, except for Facebook. And that's a really long story for another time.
And I am liking Blue Sky so far. I do admit I am not in the habit of opening it like I am programmed to open Facebook. That's just an automatic. Your thumb is clicking that before you even know that it is. But when I do get on Blue Sky, it is a nice platform for creatives and for also anyone. If you're into music, books, movies, you can follow exactly what you want. And there's just less of the BS, I'm going to say.
I'm just gonna say Zuckerberg, or can I swear on here?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'm just gonna say Fuckerberg is not running me off of Facebook. I don't care about politics. I am staying, because if everybody runs off, then he wins, and that is not gonna happen.
That is so funny. I've interviewed 4 other authors by this point, so I don't remember which one it was with. But I said the same thing. I said, I have dug my heels in and I have stayed on every social media platform because I
Yep.
feel like I'm sacrificing our cause if I don't try to reach as many people as possible with this.
Exactly.
So
And he needs to realize that he can't push people around and expect them to just lay down and to give up their own causes. So
yeah, and we're not gonna run away, and we're not gonna tuck our tails between our legs. So
yeah, Josh Darling posted a really great song today that was "It's Okay to Punch a Nazi." It was so funny. Now, I'm not saying that we should go out and like look for violence or anything, but the song it has just a certain feeling that I have in my heart these days after a certain orange Cheeto man has taken office and has Elon Musk standing beside him.
everything got so musky. Yeah, I feel that.
Yes.
Well, gosh, I'm excited to put this episode out because, like I said, you're author number 5, and we've had 5 amazing, powerful women on this episode. And is there anything else, any book titles you want to direct anyone to or anything before we wrap it up? Because I'm here for you, babes. Well, Sleeve of Hearts, I do want to remind people that kind of the point of this episode is that Sleeve of Hearts is having a free Kindle promotion from March 4th to March 8th. So that's March 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. You can go download that for free. You can read Nora's poem, which she just read on here, but she also has some shorts at the back, little haiku and stuff that you didn't get to hear. So
Yeah, I would say that this is my most recent book. So this is the one that I would be promoting. If you want some fun H.P. Lovecraft stuff, I'm in Necronomicon, which you can also find on Amazon. So that's kind of cool.
And if you can say it 5 times fast, she'll give you a free copy.
Yes, I actually have free copies. So yeah, if you could, I would.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's a tongue twister.
For sure. Kudos to you for getting it right. Wow. Well, I'm going to remind everybody that you can check out some blogs that Nora has written along with a bunch of other cool blogs at weirdwideweb.org. We're going to have a writing contest coming up soon with paid prizes. And you can also find information on Sleeve of Hearts at any time by going to weirdwideweb.org/SOH, as in Sleeve of Hearts. And I will post definitely during this promotion and remind everybody when it's up for free. And Nora, I really want to thank you for coming on here because it's going to be a fantastic episode. And I want to thank you for being part of Sleeve of Hearts.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that you love my art.
Oh, and after your poetry reading, I'm going to insert a round of applause for you because you did a great job on that.
Aw, thank you.
I love my round of applause sound effect. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and I hope maybe I'll have you on again during season 2.
Okay, that sounds fun. I love podcasts.
All right. We'll talk to you then.
Okay, bye.
Okie dokie, weirdos. This has been a special bonus episode of the Weird Wide Web podcast to let you know about our Sleeve of Hearts poetry anthology. So remember to please check it out by going to weirdwideweb.org/SOH. You can also visit weirdwideweb.org to check out all of our other projects. We do writing contests. We do a podcast. Did you know about that? We've got blogs. We're just always doing something at weirdwideweb.org. So make sure to check it out and look for Sleeve of Hearts. And if you enjoy it, you know the best thing you can do is just leave us a review. A book review would mean the world to these 52 poets. And until season 2, weirdos, stay weird out there.